If I tell you that an astronaut can return to Earth and find everyone slightly older than himself, I am not talking about science fiction, but about an inevitable consequence of reality. Time does not flow in the same way for everyone. It is an idea that clashes with everyday intuition, because in ordinary life, time feels like a uniform current, the same for every clock, every heartbeat, every thought. And yet it takes only a push toward higher speeds, or a move closer to an enormous mass for that current to deform, slow down, bend. The question, can we freeze time, sounds like a provocation. But in physics, it immediately becomes a precise issue. Not whether we can stop time absolutely, but whether we can make time, for someone, flow so slowly that it is almost stopped compared with someone else. And here the most fascinating paradox begins. Time is at once extremely rigid and remarkably malleable, a law and a wax, a metronome and a fabric that can be stretched. To really grasp this, we have to stop imagining time as a line separate from space. Einstein's relativity forces us into a stranger idea. Space and time are woven together into a single fabric, space-time, and what we call the flow of time depends on the path we take through that fabric. Every object, even one lying still on a couch, is nevertheless traveling through space-time. We just do not notice it, because our senses are tuned to speeds that are tiny compared with the speed of light. When we approach extreme speeds, however, something that seems impossible happens. Two observers can measure different durations for the same event. This is not a trick of perspective, not an optical illusion, not an instrumental error. It is a geometric fact. The measure of time depends on the route taken through space-time, just as the length of a walk depends on the path chosen. In relativity, the time an observer carries with them is called proper time, and it is what their clock records, what the chemical processes in their body register, what sets the rhythm of their life. Another observer, who sees that person moving very fast, can say that this proper time flows more slowly. The first way to slow down time is speed. The closer you get to the speed of light, the more your time dilates relative to those who stay behind. Not because the cosmos is doing you a favor, but because there is an absolute limit that cannot be violated. The speed of light is the same for all observers, regardless of their motion. To make the accounts balance, nature adjusts distances and durations. It is as if the universe were saying, you can run as much as you like, but light must remain unattainable. The price is that your time becomes shorter compared with everyone else's. At ordinary speeds, this effect is minuscule. But when speeds grow large, it stops being a detail and becomes a habit. The surprising thing is that this is not an elegant, distant theory. Time dilation has been measured in laboratories and in everyday technology. A nearly poetic example comes from muons, particles created when cosmic rays strike the upper atmosphere. Muons live for a very short time, so short that if time were identical for everyone, they should decay before reaching the ground in any significant numbers. And yet we detect them at Earth's surface, as if they had been given more time to arrive. The point is that from our point of view, muons travel very close to the speed of light, and their internal time flows more slowly. For them, paradoxically, it is not life that lasts longer. It is the distance they must travel that turns out to be shorter. Two sides of the same relativistic coin. This is one of the most hypnotic aspects of modern physics. To make reality add up, the universe does not adjust just one parameter, but two at once, space and time, as if they were elastic bands tied to the same knot. If you want an even more human demonstration, think of atomic clocks. In experiments where extremely precise clocks were flown and then compared with clocks left on the ground, differences in time were observed, exactly in the direction predicted by relativity. Motion slows the clock. Here, time is not an abstract concept. It is a difference measured in tiny fractions of a second, but real, concrete, and cumulative. and cumulative means that it can become a practical problem. The satellite navigation system we use every day, for example, works precisely because engineers constantly correct for time dilation. Satellites move fast, so their clocks tend to run slower than those on Earth. But at the same time, and here the second way of slowing or speeding up time enters the picture, they are farther from the center of the Earth, in a weaker gravitational field, which tends to make their time run faster than ours. The final result is a net difference that, if ignored, would cause positional errors of kilometers in relatively short times. It is a detail with the flavor of a revelation. Relativity is not just a profound idea. It is a necessary ingredient for making the device in your pocket work. And so we arrive at the second lever of time, gravity. General relativity overturns intuition once again. Gravity is not simply something that pulls objects like an invisible string. Gravity is the curvature of space-time. A mass deforms that fabric, and objects following the most natural path slide along that curvature. But there is a dizzying side effect. Near a large mass, time flows more slowly. This is not a metaphor. It is literal. A clock closer to the ground, that is, closer to the center of the Earth, ticks a little more slowly than a clock on top of a mountain. Once again, the effect is tiny, but measurable with modern instruments. And if on a mountain the slowing is almost imperceptible, near a neutron star or a black hole, it becomes an abyss. At this point, the question, freezing time, becomes a psychological threshold. If gravity can slow time, then is there a place where it slows it almost to a halt? This is where the most unsettling boundary of astrophysics comes into play, the event horizon of a black hole. For a distant observer, an object falling toward a black hole appears to slow down more and more, as if it were approaching a point where time bogs down. The light it emits becomes redder and redder, fainter and fainter, until it seems to vanish. From far away, in a certain sense, that object's time appears frozen. But caution is needed, because relativity is full of linguistic traps. For the one who is falling, time does not stop in the same way. Their clock continues to mark ordinary seconds, and within a finite interval of their own proper time, they can cross the horizon. It is the comparison between observers that creates the freezing effect. And here lies a lesson worth more than 1,000 formulas. Time is not a single universal river, but a map of rivers, and each observer measures their own current. Now imagine pushing dilation to the extreme, speeds close to light and enormous gravity. In principle, you can arrange things so that only a few days pass for you while years pass elsewhere, if your journey through space-time is sufficiently curved or sufficiently fast. This is the heart of the famous twin paradox. One twin leaves on a spaceship and returns, the other stays on Earth. When they reunite, the traveler is younger. It seems paradoxical because each twin could claim that the other was the one in motion. But the situation is not symmetric. The traveler must accelerate, turn around, change frames of reference, and that difference in path through space-time translates into a difference in accumulated proper time. There is no magic here. It is geometry. Like two paths between the same 2 points on a map, one longer and one shorter. Here, however, the length is temporal. So, can we freeze time? If by freeze, you mean stopping it for everyone, as if the universe were put on pause, physics offers no button. There is no time external to the cosmos from which someone could pull a lever. But if you mean making your time, relative to a distant observer, flow so slowly that it seems almost stopped, then the answer is more subtle and more surprising. We can approach that condition, at least in principle, using extreme speeds or extreme gravity. The problem is that the means to do so are far beyond the scale of present human life. Bringing a human being close to the speed of light requires enormous energies and propulsion systems we do not yet possess. Getting close enough to a black hole to achieve huge dilation poses even more brutal problems. tidal forces, radiation, orbital stability. But the concept itself is real. And precisely because it is real, it changes the way we should tell ourselves the story of our own experience. Here, an even more unsettling perspective opens up. If time is local, then the universe is a collection of nows that do not perfectly coincide. Simultaneity, the thing we take for granted when we say right now, is not absolute. Two events that occur at the same instant for you may not do so for someone else who is moving relative to you. This does not mean that reality is subjective in a trivial sense. It means that the structure of reality is richer than our language. Our brains like a single global present because it is convenient for survival, but physics asks us to accept that the present is not a carpet spread over the entire universe. It is more like a slice that changes with the observer, like a different cut through the same loaf of space-time. So what does it really mean to stop time for you? It means stopping processes. A clock is a process. Metabolism is a process. Memory is a process. If proper time slows down, these processes slow down as well, and you feel nothing strange. You do not notice being in slow motion because your thoughts are in slow motion too. That is why time dilation is not a sensation. It is a comparison. The strangeness arises when two different temporal histories meet again and are compared. That is where the effect appears, like a scar between two paths. This may be the most fascinating part. Relativity does not give you a superpower you can feel from the inside. It gives you a discrepancy measurable from the outside, a misalignment between lives that, for a while, have traveled along different temporal tracks. There is yet another level, even deeper, that is often confused with dilation. The idea of stopping time by lowering temperature to absolute zero. It is true that cooling a system reduces thermal agitation. In some materials, at extremely low temperatures, macroscopic quantum phenomena emerge. Superconductivity, superfluidity, collective behaviors that seem to defy intuition. But even here you are not turning time off. You are changing which processes are active and with what probability. Relativistic time concerns the structure of space-time and the comparison between clocks in motion or in different gravitational fields. Thermodynamic time concerns arrows, irreversibility, entropy. That is, the fact that some transformations happen spontaneously in one direction and not the other. These are two distinct layers that are often mixed together in popular accounts. And yet, when you look at them together, an even more magnetic question emerges. If time can dilate and processes can slow down, then is our perception of flow a fundamental property or an emergent effect? Here, the arrow of time enters the scene, that universal sensation that the past is fixed and the future open. The fundamental equations of physics, in many cases, do not distinguish a privileged direction. And yet we live in a clear direction. We remember yesterday, not tomorrow. This seems like another paradox, as if nature at the microscopic level were indifferent, but at the macroscopic level became inflexible. The most widely accepted answer invokes entropy. Systems tend to evolve toward more probable states, more disordered in the statistical sense. This is not aesthetic disorder. It is a count of how many ways things can be arranged. A glass that falls can shatter into 1,000 fragments because there are vastly more ways of being broken than ways of being whole. The arrow of time, in this view, does not arise from the laws themselves, but from the initial conditions of the universe and from the statistics of how parts combine. It is like an avalanche. Each snowflake obeys the same physics, but the whole takes on an inevitable direction. And so the initial question returns with a different flavor. Freezing time is not only a problem of engines or black holes, it is also a problem of information and irreversibility. If you managed to place yourself in a situation of extreme dilation, your proper time would flow slowly relative to the rest. But the rest would continue to grind through entropy, transformations, change. You would be a traveler crossing someone else's future while consuming very little of your own present. In a sense, time dilation is the closest physically coherent version of what many stories call hibernation, with the crucial difference that it is not asleep. You are awake, but the world runs. Time does not stop, it separates. There is a mental image that makes all this more concrete. Imagine two identical clocks that start synchronized. One stays in the city, the other boards a rocket that travels very fast and then returns. When they meet again, they no longer agree. Not because one is defective, but because they have traversed different geometries of space-time. If you then take one of these clocks and move it closer to a huge mass, the same kind of divergence appears even without relative motion. This means that time is a physical quantity just like length and mass, and like all physical quantities, it can be influenced by the environment. It sounds banal until you really let it sink in. Time is not only what measures change, it is also something that can itself be changed. In the end, the freezing of time remains an ideal limit, a mathematical frontier more than an accessible experience. But it is not an empty idea. It is a guide. It tells us that when you look at a sky full of stars, you are observing not only distances in space, but also differences in time. It tells us that your present does not perfectly coincide with that of a satellite above your head, even if the difference is tiny. It tells us that in a universe with gravity and motion, age is not an absolute property, but a story written by a path. And this may be the most extreme and intimate consequence of time dilation. There is no single cosmic clock to which we all belong. There are billions of clocks that agree only because, in our ordinary lives, the differences are too small to wound us. Science does not give us the power to stop time like switching off a light. It gives us something more unsettling, proof that time can be contracted, stretched, made unequal, and that the way we age is not only a biological fate, but also a trajectory within the deep architecture of the universe. If you have made it this far, it means you love curiosity as much as we do. If you enjoyed this journey, leave a like, write a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It is the best way to support what we do. Your presence truly makes a difference. Until the next exploration.